Hello, I'm Paul Andrews from G4 Guitar School Ashford, and welcome to Learn to Play the Top 5 Guitar Riffs. In this hangout, we're going to go through the top 5 guitarists as voted recently by the BBC. That includes Layla, Smoke on the Water, Back in Black, Sweet Child of Mine, and Whole Lotta Love. So the idea is to go through each riff, have a little look at some of the techniques and the styles that's involved in playing them, and yeah, have a little bit of fun. I was a little bit optimistic, I think, trying to do 5 riffs in an hour. So we'll see how we get on. I may go over them a little bit quicker than I would normally, but yes, we'll see how we go. Those who are watching this on the events page, you can post your comments on there, and I should be able to see those. I've got a couple of people joining me live on the call, so I'll be able to get their comments as well. So we shall dive straight in and have a little look at Layla. A cracking little riff. And it's a really easy one to break down into a few different sections. So the 3 sections I'll break it down into are there's a little hammer and pull-off section. We have the power chord section, and we have the higher register riff. So first thing to look at is that hammer and pull-off section. So ideally, we want to be using one of our stronger fingers, either finger 1 or finger 2, and we're going to play the open A string and hammer on to that A string. Try and get your finger nice and close to the strip of metal and trying to get that hammer on nice and hard. A lot of people, when they look at hammer-ons, they end up touching the string rather than hammering onto the string. So by doing that, it just kills the sound rather than sounding the note you want it to sound. So really whack it down, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So you've got the open A string, then hammering your finger onto the 3rd fret of the A string. We're then go down to the D string and pick that open and then hammer on the 3rd fret on that string. So we've got 0, 3 on the A, 0, 3 on the D. After that hammer on, we then pull off the D string. So you've got the hammer on the D string and then pull off. And pull off, we're just pulling off to the side. Again, a lot of people would approach a pull off, of lifting the finger straight up. We're actually picking that string with our finger when we pull off. So you've really got to pull off to the side to make it obviously move to sound the note. So we've got the open A string, hammer on, D string, hammer on, and then pull off. Then back up to the 3rd fret on the A string, and then back to D string to finish that little phrase. So we've got the A, 0, 3, D, 3, pull off to 0, A, 3, and then D. Again, I'm going through this quite quickly. The notes for this are now posted on the Hangout events page. If you're not on that, you can go to bit.ly/guitarriffs, and that'll give you the PDF, so you can obviously look through it as I'm talking. So I say I may go a little bit quick, just trying to get through this. So that's the first little riff. Try and use, say, quite a strong finger. Try and hammer and pull off closest to metal. It's quite quick as well. Speed is a bit more. So it's quite fast. So it might take a little while just to build up the speed of this riff. So start off slow. We want to try and get nice and even. Da, 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 not a. Try and get it nice and smooth. So that's section 1. Section 2, the power chords. And we're starting off with a D5 or D power chord. So our first finger, we are on the 5th fret of the A string, and our 3rd finger, 7th fret of the D string. And then we're just going to strum those 2 strings, and this is where the accuracy comes in with the right hand, just hitting the A and the D strings. We're going to slide that shape back to fret 3. So try and maintain that tension, try and push down, and then pull back. So you're dragging the sound back to fret 3, and then we're going to go back 2 more frets to fret 1. So we have, or play properly. So 1 strum, slide back, and then move and strum again. So fret 5 and 7, 3, 5, and then 1, 3. He then has an interesting part now where he walks up, firstly strumming the open A string. So if you take off the 1st finger and just strum the A and the D string again, and then play 3rd fret on the E, which will probably be easiest with 2nd finger, just moving over. So we have the, and then we go to our C power chord, so 3 and 5. So we have that little riff there. So from the walk back, off with the 1st finger and strum, then 3rd fret on the E string, and then a C5, so 3rd fret on the A, 5th fret on the D. You then do that same shape again, but now with this 2 frets higher. So we have the open A string with the 5th fret on the D, and then 5th fret on the E string, and then back to where we started with our D power chord. So that's a little bit of a tricky maneuver. So yeah, it might take a little while to get used to that one. So it's just power chords, take off that 1st finger, lifting up, and then sliding up to the next shape. So put that together. Again, I know I'm going through this quite quickly, but in regards to power chords, try and keep your fingers rigid as you slide. Try and keep the shape down, don't try and move fingers individually. And then that's that 1st section. Piece that together, we have our hammer and pull-off riff. And there's the 2nd section. Yep. So that's really the first 2 sections right there. Then the 3rd section jumps all the way up here to pattern 1 of the D minor pentatonic. And we're starting on the B string, so we have 10th fret on the B with 1st finger, and a little finger on the 13. So it's that stretch we want, the 1st finger on the 10, little finger on the 13. And then just trying to stretch up there, we're going to hammer on and pull off. Basically doing the riff that we did back here, just up in the high register. So we're hammering on with our little finger on the B string, and hammering on with the little finger on the E string. So it's 10, 13, 10, 13, then pull back to fret 10 on the E string. So on the B string, 10, 13, on the E string, 10, 13, pull off back to the 10. Then you go up to the 13 on the B, and then 10 on the top E. This is a great little finger strength builder. Little finger's obviously normally quite a weak finger, so we don't normally use it. So any little exercise like this will really help to strengthen up that little pinky. So this is just a great exercise. Let alone being a classic rock riff, it's a really nice one to build up the strength of the little finger. So you'll probably find it quite challenging because it is obviously dependent on how strong that little finger is. But give it a go, again, it will obviously build up over time. So there's the first little riff. We then bend up with fret 13 on the top E. 2 frets, so we're making it sound like fret 15. So up with the 13. Then you drop it and re-pick it on the 13. So you bend up 13, then back down and pick 13. Then back to fret 12. And if you have your 3rd finger hovering above that fret, that makes it nice and easy. So you have the bend up, 13 dropped, 12, all on that top E. Then we're moving to the B string fret 13, and then back to E string fret 10. Again, I'm saying this very quickly, so make sure you have the sheet open so you can obviously track along with what I'm saying, and just pick up the little tips along the way. So that's that little riff there, so bending up, drop down, pick 13, 12 on the top E, 13 on the B, and 10 on top E. So that's our little section. He then repeats that little hammer and pull off that we started it with, and moves the bend up 2 frets. So we're at 13, we're now moving up to 15 and bending, dropping and picking 15, and then going back to 12. So I was bending up 15, dropping or releasing and picking 15, then 12 on the, still on the E, 13 on the B, and then back to 10 on the top E. So that was bending up 15, release and pick, back to 12 on the top E, 13 on the B, and then 10 on the top E. That is the whole of that riff. So just to really go through it again, start the hammer and pull off sections, then 13 bent up, released and picked, 12, 13 on the B, 10 on the E, then again hammer and pull off, up to 15 bend, drop and 15 picked, 12 on top E, B13, and 10 on the top E. Whew. So again, a lot of notes there. I'm aware I'm saying way too much, so make sure you have that sheet. I know I keep saying it. just so you can track through what I'm saying. The most important thing here really is hand position. So think of this just as a minor pentatonic scale. First finger in fret 10, little finger in the fret 13. A lot of people opt to use maybe third finger because it's a stronger finger. But I'd say definitely try his little finger. You won't want to because it will feel very weak to do so, but the whole point of this is to build up the strength so we can obviously use it. So I'd definitely recommend trying to work with the little finger. As I said before, it's a great riff to really develop the strength anyway. So, put that together. We have that. Again, quite quick. It's mainly 16th notes, so it's quite a fast riff. So we should then have... And that's basically, it does go around that a couple more times. That's in the music, so I won't bother going over that. It's just the same thing again, basically. And then that is basically Layla. Quite a difficult one to start off with. I was going to break it. I'm basically doing the top 5. I'm counting down to riff number 1 here. And we've actually started off with probably the hardest riff, Layla. It does get a bit easier, I assure you, because we're going to move on now to Smoke on the Water. Again, one of probably the most classic riffs of all time. Rightfully so. Sorry, I'm just trying to get them tab up. There we go. There's a few ways to play this. In the handouts that I've logged online, I've written it out as he actually does play it. And looking at the music, we're playing 5th fret on the A string and 5th fret on the D string. So we're basically playing these double stops, or 4 inverted power chords, however you want to think about it. But 2 notes at once is basically what we're doing. So again, a bit of accuracy involved here with the right hand. Try to strum 2 strings. So we'll go through how it is written, and then I might throw out, a couple of easy ways as well. So we're playing 5th fret on the A and the D. We're then going to play 3rd fret on the D and the G. Then 5th fret on the D and the G. And that's really the first thing to try and get your fingers used to. 5th fret on the A and the D. 3rd fret on the D and the G. And 5th fret on the D and the G. So holding down the 2 notes at once with barring of the finger, that means holding down basically 2 strings. So we want to hold down the A and the D string together. Trying to obviously get enough pressure that you can hear both those strings. You're not getting a muted string or buzzy string, so again, quite tricky. But try and use the flat part of your finger really to push down those strings. So that's what we've got so far, the 5, 3, 5, 5, 3, and then this time, instead of going to the 5th fret on the D and the G, he goes to the 6th fret on the D and the G. And then goes back to fret 5 on the D and the G. So you have that. That's basically all the parts. It's just now putting it together. So we have the 5th fret on the A and the D, the 3rd fret on the D and the G, 5th fret on the D and the G, then back to the A and the D, D and G, then 6, 5. So it's 5, 3, 5, 5, 3, 6, 5. Then does 5, 3, 5 again, then 3 on the D and the G, and then 5 back where he started on the A and the D. And there we have it, a very simple riff, all from basically G blues scale. I think he does throw in, he does kind of like a flat 2, but it's basically just a blues scale, so you feel like that. All coming from the blues scale, G blues. So again, not a bad one, not too tricky to start getting around. One thing you could do if you're finding it's difficult moving between those strings with the 5th fret on the A and the D, you could play the notes you're already playing on the A and the D as open D and G. So you can play it all on the D and G strings, 0, 3, 5, 0, 3, 6, 5, 0, 3, 5, 3, 0. So you could basically not play the 5th fret on the A and the D and move it to just the open D and G strings. Richie Blackmore does play it on the 5th fret. He also doesn't use a pick, he uses fingers. So if you really want to get the sound, try and use your fingers as you play it. So I've got thumb or first finger, or first and second finger, whatever feels right really. But you can hear straight away, it's got to be more twang, it's got to be more snap, rather than the plectrum sort of sound. So it gives it a little bit more authenticity, I suppose. Totally different sound. If I then use it with a pick, totally different sound. I sometimes even do it with both plectrum and fingers, so what we call hybrid picking, to get a little bit of the attack of the pick, but also, let's say, the snap or the twang of the kind of the finger. So best of both worlds, really. But I'll leave that totally up to you what you do, but Richie Blackmore, say, uses fingers for that one. So there's Smoke and Water, riff number 4. Whew. Probably one of the most easiest ones, and just a classic. Again, there's, I think, an unwritten rule. If you play guitar, you have to know that riff. You just have to. It's the riff that every guitarist knows. So, moving on to the next one, we then have another classic, Back in Black, AC/DC now. And this one, again, is not too difficult. You know, the best riffs ever are the ones that are simple. Just a few different components. And this one is no different. Just a few chords and a little kind of scale fragment in there. And the chords are power chords. Again, they're kind of the riff chord of choice. A lot of the classic riffs tend to have just power chords in them. And they're great kind of movable shapes. Just a great shape. You can move it quickly. It has a very rocky sound, if you like. It's very powerful, hence the name. So it sounds great. Again, especially with distortion as well. So Back in Black. We start off, the first couple of bars are just X'd out. That means we have muted strums. I didn't realize how much reverb I had till I did my muted strums, so I apologise for that. So yeah, muted strumming, and then he goes straight in with his power chord. Now, you think of his power chord as just kind of like an E chord, really, an E major chord, but we're only going to strum the low 3 strings, the E, A, and D strings. So again, actually the right hand, just trying to hit those 3 strings. And you can really hear the difference there between the power chord and the full open chord. It's funny, you take away a few strings by doing the power chord, but it adds a little bit more oomph, a bit more punch. So that's what we're going to try and do here. Really focus on the accuracy, just the E, A, and D strings on the E5. So E5, just 2nd fret on the A string and 2nd fret on the D string. So you could play that with 2nd and 3rd finger as kind of like an E open chord, or we could play it as like an E minor with 1st and 2nd finger. Again, either or, whatever you feel more comfortable with, really. And then we're just going to strum that once. Just like that, just one strum. Moving on. Next we have a D chord, and we're going to eliminate though finger 2. So we have just the 2nd fret on the G string and 3rd fret on the B string. Again, that is the power chord equivalent of a D chord. We're taking out the 3rd in that chord, the F sharp that we play on the top E. Getting rid of that, so now we're only to 3 strings. So we need to just try and miss out that top E. Just the D, G, and B string should be strummed, and strummed 3 times. So we'll 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we have E, D, 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 so far. And the last chord in our 3 chord sequence is A, A5, A power chord. Again, we finger this just as a normal open A major chord, where our fingers are all in the line. 2nd fret on the D, 2nd fret G, 2nd fret B. But as it's a power chord, we're taking out our 3rd finger, so we do not have 2nd fret on the B string, just the A, D, and G. So again, we don't want to try and strum all strings, just those 3. And this is another 3 strummer. So the first one, E, you strum once, D, you're strumming 3 times, and A, you're strumming 3 times. So to put that together, we have E5, 1 strum, D3, and then A3. And that's the first part. E, D, 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 A, A, A. And with the A, you could bar it, or you could do just 2 fingers. Again, entirely up to you, whatever feels kind of natural. You can do that with the E chord as well, bar it. Just depends if you have enough bend with your finger. You don't obviously bar more than the 2 strings you want, or you're going to be getting kind of like a sus chord sound, which we don't want. We want the power chord sound. So again, play around, see what kind of fingering works best for you, and obviously go that way. So just to recap, we have the E5, 1, D, 1, 2, 3, A, 1, 2, 3. Then we have a little bit of an E minor pentatonic scale, which is 3rd fret on the E string, then open E string, 3rd fret on the B string, open B string. So we have that. So E3, E, B3, B. 2nd fret on the G, and he bends that up, which is a bit of an awkward bend. There's a lot of tension in the 2nd fret, so it's a bit awkward to get that string up. We're bending it up, then dropping down, and then pulling off. So we want that kind of sound. Up, down, pull off. Up, down, pull off. Put that together. E3, E, B3, B, G2 up, down, pull off. Put put that together. We have E, D, 1, 2, 3, A, 1, 2, 3, then the riff, and around again. So again, a great little riff, just 3 chords and a little minor pentatonic scale at the bottom there, just that first octave bit. Again, the bend's a bit tricky. Try and use finger per fret, and what I mean by that is I'm using the 3rd finger in fret 3. That then leaves the 2nd finger hovering above the 2nd fret of the G string, so you can just, it's there ready to go down. So you just put it straight down and you're away. Rather than using kind of 1st finger and having to move back, 3rd finger just puts you in a good positioning for the bend. So that is the first part of the riff. We could even leave it there, that sounds pretty cool, but there is a 2nd little phrase he plays. So as he repeats it, then it has this really stretchy walk along the E string. Whew. So we're playing 2nd fret on the A, then 4th fret on the E, which is alternating between the E string and the A string. So you have A2, E4, A2, E5, A2, E6, A2, E7. So you can see I'm just walking up that E string from 4 to 7. So 4-2, 5-2, 6-2, 7-2. If you have quite a stretchy hand like me, you'll find you can probably do that stretch. That's quite tough though. You could even leave the 1st finger off and just move back to it. You can even play this open on the A string, but it's, I don't know, you kind of, I think I want that walk on the E, and that kind of slide back. It adds to the effect. So yeah, I think it kind of needs that. So you could do it open strings. So I should quickly tell you that, just if you do want a bit of a shortcut. So when you've done the 2nd fret on the A string, you can do 4th fret on the E, 2nd fret on the A string, then open A. The 5th fret on the E string is an A note, as is the open A string basically. So rather than playing 5th fret on the E, we can just play open A. So that means we don't have this stretch. It makes it a little bit easier. So rather than playing the 5th fret on the E, you play the open A. So we have A2, E4, A2, A, A2, A1, A2 again. And the A1 is the same as the note on the 7th fret. So you can basically take out the 5 on the E string and replace it with the open A string. You could take out 6 on the E string and replace it with the 1st fret on the A string. And then where we played the 7th fret, you can just play the 2nd fret twice. So we have A2, E4, A2, A, A2, A1, A2, A2. Now that's an easy way of making, basically eliminating the stretch, which you'll obviously, your hand, sorry, will thank you for. But that's the way he plays it. He does play the stretchy shape. So just one more time, go through. We have the E, D, 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 A, A, then the riff, E, D, 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 A, and the stretch. And then around you go. Again, another classic riff. And that's pretty much Back in Black. So there's a few tricky parts there. Think of it, so if you've not done power chords before, just like them to the open chords, but just not strumming all the strings. So there's a little bit of a tricky thing there, the accuracy. So we've got the minor pentatonic scale there using the finger per fret principle. So spreading out your fingers will make it also easy to play. But yeah, that's a nice one. And we're doing quite well actually. There's me thinking we're running out of time. We're actually doing really well on time. So we shall move on. And the next one up is Sweet Child of Mine. Now this one will take probably the longest out of all of them. A little bit more in this one. Now this riff started off as Slash's warm-up, just a string skipping kind of warm-up, which then they were jamming around and then kind of morphed in Sweet Child of Mine. So I don't think it was really meant for release. It was just kind of a real warm-up. Pretty much like Ain't Talking About Love, Van Halen, or even any kind of song like that was just playing around. And it's just been then kind of recorded and made into a tune. So it's quite a nice sounding riff, and it's based all around a D chord. But our D chord we're playing an octave higher, so we're playing all the way up the neck here. So we're thinking basically like a bar chord shape. It's a movable D shape all the way up here at the fret 12. There's where our D is. So we're all the way up the neck. So it's quite far, but if you can visualize a D chord, you won't go too far wrong here. You'll know where to put your fingers. So it's first finger on the D12, then little finger on fret 15 on the B. The trick here is really finger per fret. If we can get used to the finger per fret on this riff, you'll find it will make it so much easier. Again, I see a lot of people try and stretch out with the third finger, and then the first finger, what happens there is it then stretches as well and moves off of the 12th fret. So then when you try and go around the riff, you end up hitting the fret 13 when you want the fret 12. By using finger per fret, you'll keep your hand in one position. And again, your fingers just go straight down. They don't have to move left or right. So it helps with accuracy and also with fluency. So we want to try and keep our fingers all in those frets. So we're going to designate basically first finger, fret 12. We're going to designate little finger, fret 15. Third finger, fret 14. And second finger doesn't do anything. So second finger's kind of left out in this one, just those three. So first finger, fret 12. Little finger, fret 15. And then second finger, fret 14. And just go over this now to break down a little bit more. We have the 12th fret on D, so D12, then B15, G14, and G12. So that's the first thing to get happy with, because that is half the bar there, and that just gets repeated around. So we have D12, B15, G14, and G12. Right, now little finger, back to that one, 15 on the top E, then 14 on G, 14 on E, back to 14 on G. Now this section could be a bit tricky, because we're obviously skipping strings, but with one finger, which does make it quite a tricky kind of skip. So you could bar your finger, just roll it down to play the top E, or you could remove it completely. I'm probably in favour of removing it completely, because that then stops the sound. And you use the tip of your finger, which has a better tone. Again, it's up for discussion. Some people like to roll their fingers, some people like to use the tip of their finger. Something to play around with and see what kind of works for you, really. But I remove my finger, I use a tip. So we have D12, B15, G14, G12. That's the first half of the bar. Second half of the bar, E15, G14, E14, back to G14. It's the third finger that wants to move between those two strings. So third finger is on the G14, E14, G14. You can really see the D chord in that last couple of sections, or those last few notes, sorry. So when you're basically mapping it out, playing the 14 on the G, 14 on the E. There's your basically D shape right there. So again, if you can visualize that chordal shape, you can then see where your fingers are basically going to go. So that's definitely how I recommend doing it. So there's the first riff, and that riff basically gets continued. He's only changing one note. So the first guy is getting happy with those basically 8 notes. Make sure you're happy with that. I remember doing this riff, and it took me quite a while to get used to that. You know, if it slashes warm up, if it slashes string skipping exercise, you know it's going to be quite tricky. So it might take a little while to get used to that, to get fingers really happy, especially with a finger per fret kind of idea. It doesn't just want to, it doesn't happen. Fingers don't like to do that, so you really have to work on that. Right, so it goes around that basically 2 times for 2 bars. This is 8th notes, so we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we do it for 2 bars, and then you just change the first note. So instead of playing 12th fret on the D, it goes to 14th fret on the D. That's the only thing that changes. It's easy to think it's more than that because there's so many, obviously there's 8 notes in the bar, but that's the only thing in that first line basically. In bars 3 and 4, he's only changed that first note. So instead of 12th fret on the D, we've then gone to 14 on the D. The rest of it is exactly the same. So you've got D14, B15, G14, G12. And the second half, the same as before, E15, G14, E14, G14. That then goes around twice again. So the first line is the 12th fret on the D to start off. Then it moves up to 14 on D. And that's the first line, that's the first 4 bars. Now the next 4 bars, again, he just changes the first note on bars 5 and 6. Sorry, I couldn't count then, 5 and 6. And instead of doing the D on the 14, he does G on the 12. So now instead of starting off on the D string 14th fret, he starts off with G 12th fret. Again, the rest of the riff is exactly the same. It's just that first note that's changed, basically. So just to recap the riff as well, we got G 14, G12 now, and then B15, G14, G12. That's the first half of the bar. Then E15, G14, E14, back to G14. So again, it's just the first note that changes. And that goes around twice. And then the last couple of bars, bars 7 and 8 of this kind of 8-bar loop, then goes back to where we started, to D12. So just the first, basically, bars 1 and 2 repeated. So you put that together, you start off on the D12, then D14, twice on this one, then G12, and then back to that D12. Cool, and that'll teach you not to look, because I did play a couple of wrong notes there. But yeah, that's it. So the first 2 times is the D12, the next 2, the D14, the next 2, G12, and then the last 2 bars, that's that D12. So again, that's the only thing that changes in that riff, it's just that first note. Once you've got past that, so it's just that first note you need to worry about. Right, so that's the first part of that riff. Again, that goes around a few times. Yeah, we'll do this next part because we have time. And this does get a little bit tricky. It's just a little bit filly riff. He basically ends the riff with going into the verse. So it's quite a nice little bridge into that verse section, so we'll go through it. It's 12th fret on the top E, and 14th fret on the G, and he basically alternates. He keeps coming back to that 14th fret on the G, but he changes the notes that he's playing on the top 2 strings. So we're going to do 12th fret on the E, 14 on the G, then 15 on the B, back to 14 on the G. So there's the first half of the bar. There's the first 4 notes. So we have E12, G14, B15, back to G14. So that's the first 4 notes. The next part of the bar goes back to E12 again and G14. So the first 2 notes are the same as the first phrase we just looked at. But then he plays 14 on the top E and then back to 14 on the G. So you can see he keeps returning to 14 on the G. So just keep remembering that we're alternating here. So we've got 12 fret on the top E, 14 on the G, 15 on B, 14 on G, 12 on E, 14 on G, 14 on E, and then 14 back on the G. As we're playing this, again, keep remembering finger per fret. Make sure we got the first finger in the fret 12, third finger in the fret 14, and a little finger in the 15. That'll make it so much easier if you can really start getting into the habit of doing that. So that first bar should be just like that. Right, then the last part of that little phrase, he then basically walks down the E string. So we have 15, 14, 12, and then 15 on the B. So it's E 15, 14, and 12. So E 15, 14, 12, and then B 15. Each one of those notes, though, he walks down has the G 14 in between. So now if we put that in, it goes 15 on the top E, 14 on G, 14 on top E, 14 on G, 12 on top E, 14 on G, 15 on the B. So you can think of that as in 2 parts. We've got the walk down the E string, 15, 14, 12, and then to end on the 15 on the B. But between that we have the 14 on the G. So 15 top E, 14 G, 14 top E, 14 G, 12 top E, 14 G, and then B 15. So put that together, we have. So quite a nice little riff. put both those riffs together. So the first riff we have, and the second part. Now, a really good way of breaking this down would be to look at it in those two parts like I just did in that last bar, which is to break apart the G string and the B and the E string. So as soon as you do that, you've obviously halved what the notes you've got because he alternates between that G string. So if you can do that, if you can look at the top E as being, okay, so it's 12 on the E, 15 B, 12 on E, 14 on E, 15 on E, 14 on E, 12 on E, then 15 on B, as your first section, and your second section just being the 14th fret on the G, it's very easy to break it down and make it a bit easier to digest. It's only those two sections, so you can even take one at a time. Just taking the top string section, and then, well, you probably don't need to take the G string, because it's just one note. But then you could just bring it in nice and slowly. So, again, put it all together. So we have that. And then put the whole riff together. I'll just do it one time through. So then 12 fret on the D, and now 14 fret on the D, sorry. 12 fret on G. And there we go. So that's how it basically all fits together. Again, it does repeat that first little riff. It loops it around a couple times, then goes into this outro section. But obviously, to save time, I'm just going to do it once. So the main takeaway here is finger per fret. Don't try and use just one or two fingers. Don't try and stretch. Use the little finger in fret 15. Use the first finger in fret 12 and the third finger in fret 14. Try and visualize your chordal shape, so the D chord, where all the notes are coming from. It's just an arpeggio of the D chord. As soon as you can see that, that'll make it a lot easier to see what notes you should be playing and keeping, you know, in the shape. And then, yeah, try and break it apart. Remember, it's just that one bar riff, basically. He then just changes that first note. So 12 fret on the D, then 14 fret on the D, and then 12 fret on the G. So just changing that first note every 2 bars. And then it has got this tricky little outro, which again is a bit fiddly. It does require a bit of accuracy of the picking hand because it does skip strings. But there you go. It's a great little technical riff, great little warm up. So there we go. There is riff number 2, Sweet Child of Mine. And we are nearly there now, only one more left. And there's enough time, hopefully, to have a good recap of these as well. I was a bit worried that we wouldn't have much time. Come on. But we've actually got quite a bit, so this is great. I thought we wouldn't be able to fit this into an hour. So the last one's Whole Lotta Love. Again, a classic kind of riff. A great Led Zeppelin tune. Oh, lovely. Just really a power chord. That's all that is. Just a power chord and then this little kind of bluesy riff. So with a lot of Led Zeppelin stuff, you slow it down, you can basically see the roots of where they've got their ideas and inspiration. It is just a bluesy riff. So let's give it a whirl. And we start with a little slide along the E string here. So we're 5th fret up to 7 on the E. And whenever you're sliding a note, think about what note you're going to play next. So we're sliding into fret 7 on the E, and then we want to play 5th fret on the A. So if we were to slide in with first finger on the E, so our first finger ends up on the 7th fret, we then have to then jump back to get to that 5th fret. So basically set yourself up for the next note. So by sliding in with third finger, first finger's then free to play that 5th fret on the A, is basically what I'm trying to say here. So sliding with third finger, and then you can see first finger is directly above the fret we wanted to play. So sliding with the third finger, and then play that first fret on the A5. So we've got E5 to 7 slide, and by sliding I mean just fretting the note and dragging it along that string, keeping the pressure as you move. And then the fret 5 on the A, and then it returns back to the E7. So we've got E5, 7, A5, E7. And then he returns back to the A5. So there's a lot of 5s and 7s here. So we've got E7, A5, E7, A5. And that's it, that's that main riff. Again, so simple, just 2 notes, but it sounds really nice, really effective. He does also, as I've written on the sheet, put in the open D string to add a bit more kind of oomph behind it. Basically, we're doubling up the note. We're playing the D notes on the A string, and then we're playing the D open string. So we're doubling our D note, which just makes it sound a bit more powerful, a bit more oomph behind it. So you can hear that with the note doubled, and then without the note doubled. Just obviously a lot thinner sound. So it's quite nice to add in that second D, basically. So there's the first half of the riff, the main kind of slide in. He then just goes to an E5 power chord. And the E5 power chord, we're at 7th fret on the A string with finger 1. And then our third finger is on the D string, fret 9. Now, it's notated here as a 3-finger power chord and a 2-finger power chord. And the only difference there is we're just going to put the little finger underneath to play the D string, or G string, sorry, we're playing the D string. So G string and fret 9. So we've got our first finger on the A7, our third finger on the D9, and then our little finger underneath it on the G9, so 3 fingers. Now you could play it as a 2-finger power chord. Again, the 3 fingers just gives it a bit more oomph. We basically doubled the E note, which gives it again a little bit more power. Now we're going to put in the open E string as well here. So we're playing 4 strings there. By putting the open E, it really gives it a nice bass tone. And he's basically going to then just vamp that D. He's just going to basically drone out the D as he's playing through it. It's all 16th notes, this one as well, so it's quite quick. So we're basically picking 4 times the beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you can get that kind of feel going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, or just on the open E string, that'll give you the timing. We're then going to strum the chord on the first pick of each of those beats. So on the 1, 2, 3, and 4 of every beat of the bar, we're going to strum. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So it's just giving that a little bit of a strum on, say, beats. So we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And then that space gets repeated, and then he goes back to the riff again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. Very simple, only the 2 parts. You have the main riff that we start with, the sliding in riff, and then just the E power chord. Again, the main thing really here is the rhythm. It's 16th note based. Get that sound in your head, find those 4 beats in the bar, and then it's easy then just to strum on that beat, and then just the 3 picks the open E string basically. So the 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Again, a bit quick, so you start bringing up to speed. The 16th notes do make it quite fast, and the tempo is only 88 because it's 16ths. It feels obviously a lot quicker than that. So, just to recap, make sure when we're sliding in with the 3rd finger. That leaves the 1st finger free to play the A string at fret 5. And then we're going to do basically our power chord and really be aware of the beat. Make sure we're over strumming, if you like, on the beat. So we're playing the full chord, but then just the open E string throughout the rest of that beat. So finger your beat into 4 parts, and we're going on the 1, strum the whole lot, and then 3 picks of the E string, then strum, 3 picks, strum, 3 picks, possibly. What else do I want to say? Yeah, I think palm muting sounds quite nice on here as well. Adds even a little bit more attack when you strum it. If you release the palm muting, it really kind of brings it out. So that's quite a nice thing to add as well. And if you're not too sure about palm muting, it's just using the palm of your hand just to rest just back here on the bridge or just before the bridge. You don't want your hand on the bridge or you won't mute the strings at all. You don't want your hand too far along towards the neck or you get too much muting. It's really trying to find that sweet spot. And that is back here just where the strings meet the bridge. and then we have that muted sound as we strum. And palm muting works really well for anything like this, where we want it really to cut through and really punch when we do the chords. So that sounds quite cool. I don't think it actually does that. It's just something I put on there. So yeah, it sounds quite cool though. So again, just quickly go through it. And again, I'm doing a bit more rushed than actually what's written there, but just to kind of give you the overview. Okay, so how are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing well. Again, I wasn't expecting to get through this quickly. So we have enough time just to quickly recap. I'm going to look to see if there's any kind of questions online, if I can work out how to do it. So we'll find out. But I do want to recap all of the 5 riffs and just go through some of the techniques which we talked about, because I did go through quite quickly the first ones, and I'm obviously aware that I did. So it would be good to just go back through. So the first one was layla. And again, the main thing to look at here, sorry guys, just sort my finger. And the main thing here was really break it down to 3 sections. So we start off on a hammer-on and pull-off section. The main riff, again, try and use one of your dominant fingers, quite a strong finger, first or second. Again, maybe even third might be your strongest finger. It's really up for experimentation, see which one works the best. Try and hammer and pull off with quite a bit of force. You know, think of hammering on as really, as it sounds, hammer. Don't lightly touch a string or you just mute it out. We've really got to give it a bit of attack. And with a pull off, you've really got to pluck the string with your fingers, a good way of thinking about it. It's like you're plucking the string like a plectrum, not just touching the string or just leaving the string. Really, you know, go in for it. Really drag it out. We then have the power chords. These are all 2-string power chords. So again, the accent in the right hand is what's required there. And we start off that slide as well. So that's kind of careful of. And then yeah, kind of stretch over there with the second finger where we have the open A string, 3rd fret, stretch with the second finger, back to the power chord shape, open A, stretch, and on the chord. And I'm stretching, and he doesn't actually do that, he plays the 3rd fret on the E. So we have that basically. And as you move up, we're just thinking minor pentatonic. Up here in position basically 10, or pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale, and we're bending up then on the B string. So the reason I'm saying think minor pentatonic is because then your fingers will just go into the scale shape. So first finger frets 10, little finger fret 15, and then hopefully second finger frets 11, and third finger frets 13. 13 fret 12, sorry. The reason you want to use so many fingers is just give yourself a bit more strength. So as you bend, you've got support of the other things to do so. If you're bending with little finger, just little finger, you'll find it to be very difficult to do it because it's a weak finger, so you need to have the support of the others. Another good tip with the bending is with your first finger, don't use the tip of your finger on the string, use a bit more of the flat of your finger, so the tip then as you bend moves the other strings out of the way, and as you come back down, it just brings it back down again. If you don't do that, you might find as you do that, you then snag the string as you drop it and you've got that ring out. So try and just use the flat part of your first finger, and as you bend, it just pushes all the other strings out of the way and drops them back again. So that's quite a nice little technique. The problem with anything kind of bending or any kind of single note playing is you're going to have to do some muting as well. So you could even use a palm of your hand just to lay on top of the strings you're not actually playing to make sure you mute them out. So to make sure you've got nice clean notes, not kind of things ringing out all over the place basically. So again, a few ideas there to kind of take it that step further. But the main thing there is use your other fingers to support the bend. Make sure you've got lots of fingers down. And again, with the hammers and pull-offs, really dig in that little finger. Again, a weak finger, so it'll take a bit of practice, but such a good exercise. Really to try and build up strength in that finger. So that's basically layla. Same main thing there is just the technique side of it, really with the bends with a little finger, and trying to break it down those 3 sections. Smoke and water, we're talking about as double stops. Inverted power chords, trying to bar the 2 strings, and to get the authentic sound is trying to use your fingers to put down the pick, either thumb and first finger or first and second finger. You could use other fingers, whatever kind of works for you really. And then we get that nice kind of snap of the fingers as opposed to the attack of the pick. Again, not much more to say about that one of what I've already said really. Back in Black. Yes, the power chords. So again, the right hand's required here, just strumming those 3 strings for the E chord, 3 strings for the D, and then 3 strings for the A. So I might have, yeah. And then 1 strum on the E1, then D, 1, 2, 3, A, 1, 2, 3, and then our little minor pentatonic riff. Tricky little bend there to watch out for. Again, you can see I've got the first string supporting that bend, just to give that a little bit more oomph. But it is a tough one, there's a lot of tension down there. And then with the stretch along the string, again we talked about you can play it as the open string if you want to make that a little bit easier. Moving on to Sweet Child of Mine. Again, finger per fret was really the main goal here, trying to make sure using the first finger you fret 12 on the D, little finger fret 15 on the B, third finger 40 on the G, and then just trying to adhere to that all the way through, trying to keep fingers in their frets, not kind of sharing or moving across. That'll make it so much easier. And then remembering that that riff, that first bar, is basically repeated except for that first note. So we play D12 to start, then in bars 3 and 4 we play D14, in bars 5 and 6 we play G12 to start, and then in the final 2 bars, 7 and 8, we're back to D12. So it's just changing that first note. The rest of the riff is exactly the same. You see there's a D14, there's a G12. And then we have that funky little outro, which I'll make sure I play right, shall I? There we go. Just to have a little bash around as well, but that's a really good exercise for the picking, with the string skipping, really, really nice. And lastly, riff number 1, the greatest riff as voted for by BBC, Lotta Love. And that's just broken down into the kind of the blues riff, the slide up. Again, the takeaway there was trying to remember when you're sliding in what note you're going to play next, and then using the appropriate finger for the slide. So sliding with 3rd finger because we're going to come back to the 5th fret. We don't want to slide in with 1st because then we're the wrong side. So slide in, and then the E power chord. And again, this is more of a rhythmic focus here. Really focus on those 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the beats, you're strumming the full chord, and in between on those 3 other 16th notes, we're picking the open E string. So we have go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So again, that's the main things to focus on there. Right, well that's pretty much it. There are 5 riffs. Let's see if I can work out how to do this. Well, I've got nothing in there. I don't think I've got anything in the Q&A. So that must mean that there are no questions. Or there's so many questions they won't fit in the Q&A. So brilliant. Well, hopefully. Now, Alex, have you got any questions at all?
No.
Does that make sense? Again, quite a quick run through, but hopefully a few ideas there to kind of take away and have a little play around with.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm bang on time. I wasn't expecting that at all. I expected to run over by at least half an hour. So that worked out quite well. Well, thanks to everyone who joined on the events page. I can see there's a few people watching off the page. Thanks for Alex joining me live. And yes, thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll do another kind of hangout looking at some songs and techniques very soon. So thanks for checking it out. Check me out on Facebook, facebook.com/G4GuitarAshford, to keep up to date with any news or any happenings. And then, yeah, I'll hopefully see you on a hangout again soon. Cheers.
Bye.